Recently, I was asked to be a guest on the podcast The Gateway with C.L. Thomas. Here's part 2.
It's time for Survivor Angels, an approach to strengthen trauma survivors. Here, you can escape what draws negativity and engage your positive abilities and the gifts that you've always had. Let's activate your angels. And to help you on that journey, here's Chaplain Jodi.
So is everybody assigned like a guardian angel?
Yes. Sometimes even more than one. It depends. And sometimes they will swap out. And that's the only thing I can think of with that is because since our souls keep revisiting here until we get our soul contracts right, and then we finally, don't need to come back. I have to believe that our guardian angels swap out because maybe the next time that we come, or maybe 3-4 times down the line, we need a different kind of help from them. And so they'll go, okay, like a relay, it's your turn, and do that. So one for sure, but I think that as we go through our soul life, if you will, that we can have more than one. Mm-hmm.
Are all spirit guides angels?
I believe that there's a difference between spirit guides and angels. I'm not quite sure how to describe this because I'm so entrenched with my angels. A good person to talk to about that, and if you haven't had her on your podcast, you need to get her on, is Sarah Lemos, because she can talk spirit guides forever and she knows them so well. I highly recommend Sarah. I believe that they're different, and Sarah would tell you the same thing. So I'm just going to leave it at that because she's the expert. That's kind of not my wheelhouse. Yeah.
So what is Survival Angels? This is an organization that you've created through your experiences, right?
Repeat, you cut out a little bit.
What is Survival Angels?
Survivor Angels.
Yes.
Survivor Angels is an approach that I coined to help people who struggle with life or have had traumatic situations, to show them how, when they call on the angels, they can help them to move into a better place. It is not a substitute for professional therapy. I am a life coach. I'm an intuitive empath. I am a shadow healer and a light worker, but I am not a professional therapist. So I make that very clear right up front. What the angels can do is they can bring those messages that if you are feeling really anxious in a situation, if you open yourself up, they will help to calm you. If you're depressed, they will come to you and suggest maybe an activity to sort of move you out of the deep depression in that moment. Angels cannot heal you. They cannot cure you of anything. Only you can heal yourself, or with the help of a professional, you can be healed. However, the angels are always present. They're there to comfort you and support you and bring you those messages that you need. You have to watch for the fallen angels, especially if you are depressed, because you're open to anything when you're depressed and you are enveloped in darkness. And if you've had, a bit of that dark in your life, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you start grasping at anything that comes at you. And so that's where I tell people you have to listen very closely to that message. If it's not positive, it's a fallen angel. If it's coming through as something that's very dark and negative, that is a fallen angel, and literally run from it. Do not go there. But if it's something that is light-filled and loving and positive and something that's gonna bring your energy and frequencies up, then you're talking to an angel that's filled with light and love. And that I always say, that's the one on your right shoulder and the darkness one's on your left shoulder. And that's how so many, again, of the texts will tell you too, that the good is on the right and the bad is on the left.
It is so important to have that discernment too, because I feel like when you're in that dark place, for
Mhm.
some reason that the demonic side and darkness and negativity just really gets drawn to you.
It does. Angels come through um, audibly for me. Um, Only once did I ever hear them say my name, but I will get ringing in my ears. That's one thing that I get. The ringing in my right ear tells me that's the message I need to listen to. For some reason, lately, I've been getting a lot in my left ear, but I have a lot going on in my life right now, um, and they're trying to get to me. Um, I had a lot of people, trying to push a lot of positivity my way because for some reason I am under attack right now, and I believe it's because Survivor Angels is starting to reach so many people, which is what it's all about. I have never been in Survivor Angels to make money. It is just to get people the help that they need, because people in the mental health field, there aren't enough professionals out there.
Mhm.
And so to get an appointment with somebody is almost impossible. And depending on
Yeah.
what area of the country and the world you're in, it is very, very almost impossible to do. And so to bring in the angels, so at least for a moment, they've got something to hang on to, something that will give them hope. That is what Survivor Angels is all about. And so I'm just, I wake up some mornings and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then because the first thing I always do is talk to my angels, the first thing they do is they go whap up against the side of my head and go, you've got a mission. Get out there and get busy.
Well, I think too, though, because you are a light worker and creating the angel survivors to help other people, you would be under attack because if you think about the spirit world in terms of an actual war, who are they going to take down? Those who have influence for the greater good.
Right.
So it only would make
And
sense that the light workers would naturally be kind of attacked in some way.
right. Right. And I know that I'm specifically an angel light worker and a shadow healer because of my intuitive empath side. Well, that's both of them. The shadow healer, delves deep into the dark, where the angel light worker is all out in the light. And so there is a major war going on within me with what I do, because in order to help those, uh, I don't call anybody a victim. Everybody is a survivor. You're only a victim in the moment where the traumatic event or situation is happening. After that, you've survived. It still might not be pretty, but you've survived. Well, I still have to get into that deep darkness because mentally they're still sitting in there and we need to bring them up out of it. And that's with the angels.
So you're, in a sense, trying to wake them up.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
It's kind of like,
And
in mediumship too, in the spirit world. It's kind of the idea when you see a spirit that I don't wanna say stuck because you're never stuck in a place. I don't believe spirits get stuck anywhere, but I think they get kind of lost in
right.
kind of their own stuff, right?
Hmm.
So, I feel like, when you're trying to help a spirit cross over, you're in essence trying to wake them up. Is
Hmm.
that kind of the idea?
Yes, it's the same thing. Think about ourselves when life is just going on day after day, same thing. And you kind of get stuck in a rut. And it's the same thing. You're just in this rut, even if you're kind, I because I'm in Minnesota, And I grew up with winter and snow and everything. You know, your tires spinning and you dig the rut, and it's just the car's just rocking. You're trying to get out
Mhm.
of it. It's kind of the same thing. You just need that push that finally, frees you. And then it's like, okay, there we go. Let's move on.
What are some of the transformations that you have seen in people's personal lives who've come to you for help?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Hmm. Have to stop and think. Okay, this is a little of an offshoot, but I just want to bring this in so people know how the angels work. When I went to Ireland a couple of years ago, I went on a mission. My husband and I had been there back in 2000, and then we went with a paranormal group in 2022. My mission was to find my Celtic angel. I knew I had a Celtic angel, and they call it Anam Cara, which means soul friend. I had no idea what that meant. What did that look like? Is it going to be someone who manifests as an angel? Is it going to be an actual person? Is it going to be just a feeling that I get when I get there? I'm going in blind. I don't know anything except this is what I wanted to do. And so it was 2 days before our trip ended. And I'm walking with our bus driver. We had just come from one of the ancient sites, Druid site, and we were walking on the path and we were just talking and he was telling me his life story, and the more he told me, the more it was like we became one. And in that moment I knew that was my Celtic angel. I didn't say anything. So the next night we had our final dinner, and we are kind of going around the room and people were, telling about what was your most memorable moment. So I said, my mission was to find my Celtic angel coming to Ireland, blah, 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 all of this. And I said, I found him. And of course, everybody's like, well, what? Who? How does that work? And I said, well, he's standing right over there. And I pointed at our bus driver. I don't know who was more surprised, everybody in the room or him. But we got done and I went over to him and he said, I thought I was the only one that felt it. I said, no, I said, I felt it too. And so if people want to go back, they can watch my podcast. It's called My Celtic Angel. And it's a whole podcast with just him and I. They can see that. But that's how these transforming pieces happen, is when you least expect them. So
Hmm.
as far as an example, because there's because I hesitate to talk about people who I've actually helped because it's kind of a privacy thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but just to I'm going to retell a story, and this again is on one of my podcasts. And if you go back and look at the one that talks about childhood trauma, that's where this one is. Very dear friend of mine told me her story growing up, and I can tell this because she has told it on the podcast. Um, her parents were drug users. She grew up in California, and as she said, her parents never should have had children. And I believe she has two siblings, so there were three of them. But she would watch her mom walk out the house and go down the street to the store. She would watch her out the window. And she said this one day, it was up on the second floor of a building. And she said this one day when she left, she said there was like this confetti falling out of the sky. And she was just a child. And of course, didn't have screens on the windows then. And so she was trying to reach out and grab the confetti as it's falling. And as she said,
Hmm.
she could feel a force and energy trying to pull her out of the window. At the same time, she felt another energy holding her in, keeping her inside of the building so she wouldn't fall. Well, somebody saw this and called the police and said, there's a child that's about to fall out of a window. And so the police came, and she was still in this tug of war. And of course, then they took her back inside and she was safe. And she will claim to this day that that was an angel, probably a demon, trying to pull her out with a light and love angel that was holding her fast inside of the building. And she has believed in angels ever since then. She is a psychic medium. She is probably the most sensitive psychic medium I have ever been around. I've been on several investigations with her. And so it's that sort of thing about how angels transform lives. I've talked with people near death experiences, and to listen to them it's mind blowing. And you know when they say an angel took me here and brought me back, you know, they told me this, they told me that, you know, it's real
Mhm.
because you can't make that stuff up. You just, you know, especially for all the stories that I've heard, you know, or how they say that one person, again, another podcast, um, she was walking home or from school. I don't quite remember. And she said all of a sudden all these teenage boys surrounded her. And she was terrified because she knew that this wasn't going to end well. And all of a sudden, this man appears out of nowhere. She was walking through a railroad yard. And of course, the boys took off because he said, "Get out of here." And, you know, so she watched the boys run off and she turned around. He was gone. And she walked around, you know, the rail yard, never could find him. She knows it was an angel that saved her from those boys. And she said, "I will believe in angels until the day I die and beyond."
You hear so many stories like that.
Mhm.
So many stories. I mean, how can it not be real when so many people have the same stories?
Right. And I know some people say to me, um, like people who read my first book, my second one is due out here shortly. They said after reading the book, all of a sudden I'm thinking about all the things in my life where now it had to be angel intervention. It had to be angels that kept me from doing that or got me to do that, whatever
Mhm.
the situation might be. And I mean, for me personally, I know the angels have saved my rear end countless times in my life. In fact, there was even one time that I should not be sitting here right now. But thanks to angels and because I listened to them, trust me, there's been times when I haven't listened to them and I paid consequences for it. But this time, thank God I did, or I wouldn't be here today, and my children wouldn't be here or anything. So I can't negate angels.
Well, that said, I do have to ask this because I have to, I got to throw this part out there too. A lot of people will set up altars and almost like worship angels. We're not supposed to do that, are we?
No, there's no reason to. Um, Angels are not there to be worshipped. And what I always tell people too is they'll say, "Well, I don't believe in angels," and I said, "You don't have to believe in them. They believe in you, and that's all that matters." Y- And so, you know, worship them, don't worship them. None of that is necessary at all. You just be open. You know, you might hear something, you might see something, you might know something. You know, if people know about the four clairs, you know, audience, sentient,
Mhm.
clairvoyant, and claircognizant, and everything. They're coming through to you in all four. Some of yours are going to be stronger than others. I've got my four pretty fine tuned to balance right now. Otherwise, clairsentient and claircognizant were my two strongest ones, but I've really been working on them. Um, yeah, just pay attention because they're there for you. And just
I
say
was
thank you. That's all you have to
Yeah,
do.
I was just
No,
gonna ask you
no
that. Are
worship,
we
no.
supposed to thank them somehow?
Yeah, just a simple thank you, you know, that's they they're just energy with no agenda except to bring you messages. So it's not like they're narcissistic and they're going, "Well, hey, come on, where's my thank you?" You know, it's not like that.
And that brings up an interesting point too. They really don't seem to have that unless the fallen angels do though, right? They
Oh,
kind of
they
have
do.
that. Yeah.
They are
Hmm.
very
The
narcissistic,
corrupted ones. The corrupted
right?
ones.
Yep. Arrogant and narcissistic, and it's all about them. And if they can flip somebody to the dark side, it's like, yeah, did it. I did it. Hmm.
Wow, can you believe we're almost at the bottom of the hour already? I have to ask you
Wow.
about Angel Trip in your book. What is that about, and where can people purchase that?
All right. Well, they could get it. They can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I mean, just, Google Angel Trip, and it's also available in 14 countries, which is really nice, and both on an ebook or in print. So whichever way you prefer. Um, Angel Trippin' is about traveling with your angels because my husband and I travel a lot, and I've traveled a lot since I was very young. My parents were travelers, which I'm so appreciative of. And so it's how, as you're getting ready to travel, as you're making all of your plans, then depending on what mode of travel you're going on, how the angels will come in different ways. When you're on vacation, um, foods that you will eat, smells that you will, encounter, all these different things. And it's as you apply it to traveling, whether you travel or not, it's going to show you how just in your ordinary everyday life the angels are there and how you can be noticing them and be aware of them and therefore start opening yourself up to receive the messages. So the travel piece, and that's where the tripping comes in, is just sort of a venue, if you will, to highlight how the angels work in our lives. And there's tons of stories and tips and all of that.
What is the most profound place you've been to?
Oh, hands down, Lep Castle in Ireland. Oh
You're
my
like the
gosh.
third person who's mentioned that place to me this week.
Everybody should put it on their bucket list if they want to experience the paranormal. Um, my husband and I went there on our honeymoon back in 2000, and we actually met Sean Ryan for the first time. He gave us a private tour because we were staying at Community Castle, which was just down the road a piece. Um, didn't have anything happen except we had some kind of odd feelings. It was daytime. That doesn't mean anything can't happen. Of course, it has a very dark history, a very dark past. Well, when we went 2 years ago, um, a murdered priest came through, a channeler, because the demonic presence that is in there, the murderer that is part of Lep Castle, was trying to overtake me. And it was very clear, all the directions from the channeler and everything, the woman with the white scarf. I was the only one with a white scarf and everything. Because an incident had happened the week before to a gentleman, the paranormal team from Ireland that we were with, they pulled me out right away because they started recognizing similar signs. And it was a good thing because I'm an ordained pastor. The week before, it was a gentleman who was a minister. The demon actually got a hold of him and pulled his arms straight above his head and lifted him off the ground. He was levitating off the ground and was in severe pain. They thought they were going to have to call an ambulance until they could finally break him out of it. And so they recognized that what had happened to him was starting to happen to me. And so they pulled me out ahead of time. And thankfully, then that did not happen to me. But I have what, at least 14 witnesses that saw this, one of them being Dave Schrader, because Dave Schrader was the ambassador on this trip. And Dave will vouch for it hands down. In fact, I had to have Dave help me to clear it out afterwards because I didn't want to take anything out with me. So
Wow.
Leb Castle.
Have you been to Huska by any chance? Huska Castle in the
No, I
Czech?
have not. No.
Put that on your bucket list. I
Okay.
went there with Dave Schrader, and my friend just messaged me. She's listening to the show, and she asked me to ask you this, and it's because I've had a really profound experience at Huska Castle, and so did a couple of other people who was on that trip, and it's been in my dreams and everything. this place.
Oh,
Like, I feel
wow.
like compelled to go back and spend a night there. It's that
Okay.
bad.
Maybe we'll have to go together.
Yeah, we should definitely go.
Okay.
It's the only castle in the world that's built to keep, something in versus something out. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
it's really interesting. But, okay,
Noted.
we're out of time, and I'll get in trouble if we go over, so I could talk to you all night. Um,
Right?
where can people
This has
sign
been
up for your
fun.
classes, and where can they find you?
I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. It's always Survivor Angels, Chaplain Jodi. My classes are on Teachable. I put them up one at a time. I believe right now I've got the basic angel class up there. I will probably swap that out, maybe first part of the summer or so. I just like to have people have enough time to go in and take them and everything. And of course, the podcast is, video wise, YouTube and Spotify video, and then every other place that podcasts are on.
Well, Jody, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you having to met you. This is the first time I've met you, and you just seem like a lovely person. We definitely need to go investigating or something in the future.
I would love to do that with you. And thank you so much for having me on and let me talk about my favorite subject.
Oh, this could totally go on for 2 hours. I'll have you back to talk about your second book that's coming out.
Sounds good.
All right. You've been listening to The Gateway, your portal to the unexplained and mystical and otherworldly, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM, New Orleans. Find me online at CL Thomas on social media to find out the latest in books and artwork created by me, your host, at www.clthomas.org. Until next time. I don't know why it hasn't ended yet, but it's supposed to.
Tell more stories.
You could. I know we're over. It's 7:05. So I don't know if they're not paying attention. I guess you could tell another story.
Okay. A really interesting one when I was in high school. I was a hockey cheerleader, and it was back when they just kind of started having cheerleaders for hockey. If you need to cut me off, let me know and we'll save it for another time. Um, we were way up in northern Minnesota for the game, and we were driving back, and there was an ice storm, and the roads became glare ice. And so the bus driver finally just pulled the bus over because he didn't want to chance it anymore, because at that point it was just, cheerleaders and players that went to the games along with the coaches. Um, and so one of our captains said, "How about if a couple of us put on our skates and we skate to the next town?" Because this is pre-cell phone. This is even pre-computer days. I'm really dating myself. And the coach is like, I mean, there didn't appear to be any traffic on the freeways. And he said, "Okay, but you guys be careful." And it was funny because one of the guys that went with said, "Not to worry, we've always got angels with us." And sure enough, they skated to the next town, which thankfully was just a couple miles away. And they came back, and what they had done is they called one set of parents who started the phone tree then to let all the other parents know what had happened and why we're not back at the school yet for them to, pick us up or anything. Um, and as they came back, it got tougher for them to skate on the road. So as they got back to the bus, they realized the temperature had warmed up enough that we could drive on the road. The ice was melting. And it's just like the angels were a part of all of that. Skate, let the parents know, get back, and it's melting, and now you can go home. We were all just like, "Yep, I think there were some angels involved here."
I have a really good friend whose brother died, and the family was really distraught about it. And at their funeral, at her brother's funeral. He was a military guy. I think he was pretty well ranked, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Okay.
he had that special funeral, military funeral, and they had taken some photos of what was going on. I guess they had, like, the firing squad and all of that kinda stuff
Yep.
there. And,
Mhm.
in one of the photos, you see this bright blue, orb. And, as a photographer, I I just, I don't go for the orb thing at all because it's always like
Right.
refractions and lens refractions. That's why it's always round, that kind of thing. But this one, it had its own light. It was the brightest orb I've ever seen, and it was blue. And there's no way the lens could have refracted off of anything with this. And there's nothing around it or anything. And to this day,
Mm.
I think it was Angel Michael
Yep. That would
surrounding
have
the
been Michael.
company. Mhm.
Which would make sense if he was military, they're our protectors, and makes perfect sense. Again, when we were in Ireland, one of the gals that we were with, she took a picture in a jail in Cork, Ireland, and my husband happened to be with. I stayed back that night, and she showed him the picture, and it was an orb, but it had a shape in it. When there's a shape in an orb, it's an angel. So, because otherwise, and you probably know from being a photographer, to get a shape into, and it'll be a geometric shape,
Mhm.
and that was, but yeah, that sounds absolutely like it was Michael. That is so
Absolutely.
cool. I know I officiated at a military funeral out at Fort Snelling here about 6 months ago, and I knew that the person, the deceased, hadn't crossed over, and I looked at his mom sitting there, and I said, he's here with us right now. And she said, yes. She said, I know he's here. And I said, should we cross him over? And she said, yes. She said, let's cross him over. So that one I did verbally with the help of everybody who was there at the graveside service. That's why I say sometimes I do them silently, sometimes I do them audibly.
Mhm.
And it was really cool because a couple of people afterwards said, we could feel him leave. And I'm just like, yes.
And you can, because I tried to cross, 2 people over in a ghost town. It was a woman and a daughter, and I guess from what I picked up being in this ghost town, the lady was, I guess her husband must have died somehow in a mining accident or something happened to him,
Okay.
and, um, she was stuck there, and the building that I picked her up in turns out to be an office, like a pay office, and I think she was trying to collect the money so that she can get on a train to get back to wherever it was that she had to take the girl. The girl was, like, maybe 6 to 9 years old, real little,
Okay.
and this was, like, a really remote ghost town, really rough too, one of the rougher
Mm.
ones. And what I was picking up on was the company would not give her the money, basically, the pay that was
Right.
owed to them. Um, but for whatever reason, she was there, and on the EVP, I caught "Help me," a couple of times from the same voice after picking all this up. So I went back with a couple friends, and, when I try to cross people over, what I do is I call on Michael, the Archangel Michael. Most of the time I do it silently because I believe that they can hear you, um, anyway. But,
Mhm.
um, I was trying to cross them over, and, um, I went back the 3rd time after doing that, and I got on, as an EVP, I got "Thank you." Clear as day, "Thank you," from a woman's voice, the same voice.
Nice.
So, it was very surreal, because I didn't really think that you could actually cross people over, but you can.
Right. And, I usually use Azrael. The only thing, you have to be careful when you use Azrael, because Azrael can go dark or light. They're what we call a dark angel, where they sort of sit on the fence, and depending which way they wanna flop, they flop. And so when I use Azrael, I always say, and I do this with all my angels anyway, but for sure with Azrael, I say, "Azrael in light and love." because I don't want Azrael heading for the dark with somebody. I want them to go to the light.
That's
But
interesting.
Azrael is the angel of death.
Huh. You
And
know,
it's to help cross, yeah, it's to help cross over, and it's to help. Azrael also helps those who are left behind too.
I have a question too about that. And then we can wrap this up. I think we're not actually live anymore on the radio show. I don't think so anyway. I think it's still going on the YouTube though. Usually Joe pops back in here, but he didn't. So I had this dream, and I have like really realistic dreams all the time. And most of the time when I have a dream like that, it means something. And so maybe about a year and a half ago, I had this dream where I know it was an angel that showed up in a dream, and I saw a name that was in a stone. I was like in an old building, and there was a stone, and it said a name, and it was Azrael, but it was spelled differently. It wasn't Azrael. It was Ariel. That's what it was. It was Ariel.
Ariel. Yes.
And I saw that name, and the angel said, "That's your name." And I said, "No, that's not what I'm called. That's not my name." And they argued with me. "Yes, that's your name." It was the weirdest thing. So
that might have been your name in another soul life.
I don't know. It was totally weird though.
Yeah. Yeah, Ariel is spelled a couple of different ways depending on what the source is, because Judaism spells it one way, Christianity spells it another way, Islam spells it another way. Yeah, so Ariel is one of those that has multiple spellings.
Yeah, it was definitely spelled. I have it in my journal somewhere, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the Jewish spelling. Come to think of it,
probably that's the
because I
most
was
common
looking it
one.
up, and I'm like, okay, that's not the angel. It's not an angel. What are they talking about? I know it means something, but I'm not sure. It's one of those kind of things.
Yes.
But Jodi, thank you so much. You're a lot of fun to talk to.
Well, this has been great. I have so enjoyed this myself. Yes.
Thanks again for joining Chaplain Jodi on Survivor Angels. For more information, go to chaplainjodi.me. That's chaplainjodi.me. And on Facebook at Survivor Angels-Chaplain Jodi. Sound effects for the show created by Andre Opate and provided by Pixpay. This is Dave Schrader. Until next time, sending you off to activate your angels.